Okay, hello, hello. Welcome to the third episode in this mini series all about the steps towards building sustainable change. So, just to recap, step one was all about building your baseline data. So, that was really picking about like 5 to 8 habits that you wanted to assess and see what is really going on, where you are currently at with those specific behaviors, really getting to build the awareness around your current level of where you are at in those specific habits. And I always say to start at that point because once again, if we're wanting to just jump right into changing a behavior without having the awareness and the understanding of where we're currently at with that behavior, then it really creates a lot of challenges along the way because we can arbitrarily choose a goal that's not based on our own data of where we're currently at. And I shared the example of, 10,000 steps a day. And because that's just kind of the arbitrary number, right? Everyone says you should be getting 10,000 steps a day. But based on your own data, if you find out that you're only really getting 2,000 steps a day, you want to start there. You want to start small and you want to build yourself up, because if you are expecting yourself to go from 2,000 all the way to 10,000 right out the gate, we can create a lot more turmoil and frustration and challenges if we jump really far to kind of that end goal per se. And so we want to take those baby steps to get there. So episode one on the mini series was all about my baseline data and discussing what that is and really assessing all of that, which was so much fun. And then step two was assessing that baseline data and gathering all of that information and reflecting so that you can start to make a plan and pick about 3 of those habits that are associated with 3 specific values that you would like to embody as you are taking on and supporting yourself with those specific habits. So the second episode in the mini series was all about building that plan and really allowing yourself to reflect on that data that you collected. And so from there, last week, I chose 3 habits and 3 values. And my 3 habits were 20 minutes of mindfulness, 20 minutes of movement or exercise, and then getting my water intake in a day. So that was 8 servings of water in a day. And my 3 values were being present, being active, and being healthy, which connects with those 3 habits. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, you're probably going to be seeing me look down at my phone because I have my coaching app and my tracker in front of me. And I'm actually going to be looking at my data for this first week. And I'm going to walk you through the weekly check-in reflection questions. So in my coaching, but also in life, and really being able to figure out how to assess and understand this process of sustainable behavior change, we really have to build in a practice of constantly being able to adjust, reflect, and give ourselves that moment to look at our behavior, see what's working, see what isn't, and adjusting, and, really redefining what is going to support us going forward. And so if we have a consistent practice where we are reflecting on, weekly is an easy way to explain this. It could be monthly, it could be weekly, biweekly, but weekly check-ins are the most supportive, especially when you're in the beginning or you're really wanting to focus on adapting your habits and understanding them on a deeper level. Giving yourself a weekly reflection check in is so powerful because it allows you to give yourself grace and curiosity as you navigate these new habits. So I like to call this beginning phase. So the baseline data is kind of that first step, no judgment, just getting those numbers. And then that second step is reflecting and being like, okay, where do I want to start? Let's stay small, keep things simple, and just have those baby steps because I'm not going to expect myself, if the goal was 10,000 steps, I'm not going to expect myself to get there next week or in 2 weeks or even in a month. Most sustainable behavior change takes at least 3 months of being able to assess where you currently are at, what are your current obstacles that keep coming up. And so this is just such a great process to really allow yourself to understand this is the exploration phase. So phase 1 is like, let's get that baseline to be like, what the heck is going on right now? And then step 2 is saying, okay, now let's pause and reflect on all of that raw data and make a concrete plan. And then step 3 is now that we've had that plan, now we're really going to give ourselves that time to explore what we're actually doing. So I have a few questions here. Typically, my weekly check-in form that I provide to my clients has a bunch of questions. So I'm going to pinpoint a few of them because I had some really interesting data for my first week of tracking these 3 habits and values. So I just love this because when we're in that phase 1 is these kind of first 3 steps of exploring what is going on and how we navigate these things, because obviously that baseline data is, just raw information to see where you're currently at, but now you're going to be collecting this data about your 3 habits and values on a weekly basis. Well, you're collecting it daily and then you're reflecting weekly of just being able to see, okay, over time, I'm noticing there's this problem. Okay, let's really take a look and solve it. Okay, there's this obstacle, there's this challenge, or this was just a really heavy week. I know that I can get back on track and be fine next week. Like giving ourselves that grace and curiosity as you slowly develop this process and practice of allowing yourself to know it's okay to look at this data. And there's going to be some weeks that it's really challenging, and that's okay. It's really giving ourselves that moment to get curious about what did stand in my way and how can I support myself through that next time. That's a huge component that either gets missed or our mindset blocks get in the way of, oh, like I messed up this week, therefore I cannot keep up with this habit, or I should just not bother and give up, right? There's a lot of things that can get into the way, but that reflection piece of allowing yourselves to like look at fear in the face or look at those challenges in the face and say, okay, what were the obstacles that came up for me this week? Because there's always going to be obstacles. Let's just be real. But that component of saying, it's okay, I had those obstacles. How can I support myself in navigating those next time? How can I set up and continue to come back to my concrete plan after those moments? A lot of the time, that's where we can fall into those traps and spiral and dwell and get frustrated and stay frustrated. And that reflection is so key. So I wanted to give you guys the raw moment of me reviewing my first week of fully tracking these 3 habits and values and seeing what's going on for me. So I wanted to just start off by asking the question, When did I feel most like my future self this week? So, just for context, I don't think I really like explained this in detail last time, but my future self, if I were to explain her in a sentence, my future self is somebody that is active and that is able to handle challenges with ease and utilizing her tools in the moment and living a meaningful life, like being present. And that includes, taking care of myself, like being healthy, but also being present in my conversations with Ian and being present, not like multitasking and having like five things open, like my laptop, my phone, and, watching a show at the same time, like really getting out of those, not to say obsessive habits, but just constantly falling into that automatic responding. I really want to pull myself and be present and mindful and be able to like get out of bed, go do the things and be active and move my body and really tackle those challenges and my goals consistently. And I know consistency is like a whole other topic I could talk about. Um, where, I've definitely struggled a lot with it, but I am in the process. This is like a belief in a statement I always tell myself is I am in the process of learning how to build my cognitive skills, my mental skills, my cognitive flexibility skills of how to manage those things with more ease. So that's just a little blurb on who I see my future self as, which there's definitely areas of that I feel like I am embodying, but that is who I am so excited to step into and become and work towards. So, when did I feel most like my future self this week? I would definitely have to say, honestly, day one, which is no surprise because day one, I feel like is that, that honeymoon phase, that excitement phase. You're like, yes, like, okay, I've got all these things. So day one, I was very gung ho about everything. I had really prepped myself. I made my breakfast for the next day. I had all of my work stuff prepped and ready to go. I wrote my to-do list. It was really that preparation piece to set myself up for success the next day. And I crushed the next day. Like I felt so good. And I did like more mindful minutes than I thought. I did more exercising. Um, and it was just like overall a really great day. So being present, I put myself at a 9 out of 10. Being active, I put myself at a 10 out of 10 because I just like crushed it. I did so much exercise that day. And then I met my water goal and I ate all my fruits and veggies. And so I actually put myself at a 10 out of 10 on my value of being healthy. So it's, I'm going to kind of tie back to this at the end, but it's really what I love about this is thinking to those moments. So if you ever feel stuck and you're frustrated, really allowing yourself to think about when was the last time I embodied this particular thing or this scenario, or this value, or really, checked that habit off. What was I doing that day? How did I support myself that day? And so those are some things that you can really help yourself move through. So that was day one that I would say was, I definitely felt most like my future self on that day. However, my next question to myself was on a scale of 1 to 5, how much did I adhere to my habits this week? So this is a really great way to assess and give ourselves a number of something throughout that week that we can support ourselves and navigate. And so on a scale, like when I look at each day, for the most part, like day 1 and 2 were really great. Day 3, I didn't do movement. So I didn't really feel as active. and I had 1 out of 3 servings of fruit, but I did drink all of my water, so, my healthy value is kind of in the middle, but what was so interesting was, like, as the week went on, things dwindled down, which I feel like, once again, is also quite common. So, Thursday, Friday, so that was day 4, 5, and then even yesterday, Saturday, so I'm recording this on Sunday. Um, you know, I definitely it was actually quite obvious, like, first day, um, I track a bunch of things, so there's 7 in here, and day 1, it was 7 out of 7, day 2 was 6 out of 7, day 3 was 5 out of 7, day 4 was 4 out of 7, and then day 5 was 3 out of 7, and yes, and then Saturday was 3 out of 7. So each day I slowly, did not complete certain habits or felt lower on my scale of my values, and I wanna take a note here that I acknowledge that Thursday, Friday of this week were extremely busy. Actually, even Wednesday too. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday were extremely busy for me. So that was something that I kind of put into the back of my brain of saying, okay, I acknowledge that on my busy days, that's where I tend to slip up. So I would say on a scale of 1 to 5, how much did I adhere to my habits this week? I would say a 3 because those first 2 days were, like, almost like perfect days. And then day 3 was okay, and then, day 4 or 5 were lower. So I would say it was about a 3. And then another question I would ask myself is any thoughts, beliefs, or stories that played a role in my habit adherence this week? So, this is a great question too, because now that I've looked at the data, which is the numbers and the objective piece, right? Where there's no judgment to it. It's just like, these are the numbers, these are the facts, right? But when I think about, like, the habits and the beliefs that I had this week and certain stories I was telling myself, definitely were attached to that busyness. So the things that I noticed was, especially like Wednesday, I felt okay, but it was almost like I was feeling tired, and then I didn't prep myself for Thursday, Friday. And then I got into these really busy days and I completely missed a lot of my habits. And so a lot of stories that I realized were, going back to, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to eat lunch. Or I'm so busy, like I have to check these boxes before I care for myself. And that is a huge story that is honestly underlining one of the biggest components that I have been struggling with is neglecting myself when things get busy. And so this was actually a very perfect example of the process that I'm going to be moving through as I navigate this, because that is like the heaviest, deepest belief in me, is that when I am busy, I don't have time to take care of myself. And I'm sure so many of you can relate to that. And I feel like that is honestly one of the biggest things we hear in society is the busy the busier we are, the more productive that we are, the better of a person that we are, or the more successful that we are. And I feel like that is a deep belief that I am slowly unlearning, redefining for myself, and shedding that and being able to decondition from those stories and beliefs. And so that was something that was huge for me. And even thinking back to like at the beginning of the week, the thoughts and beliefs and stories that I had were very much about I was excited. I really was like, yes, let's prep, let's go. Like I am capable of setting myself up for success, but it's almost like, it's like that domino effect, right? Like if one domino goes, which was kind of Wednesday, I was starting to feel drained. And then it's like that one moment where it's like, do I catch myself in that moment in that story? And that do I catch that thought of me saying, like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I'll just keep going. I'll just keep working. Do I catch it in the moment? This week I didn't, and that's okay. Like I'm learning. We're always learning and evolving as we go through this. And so, you know, it's really being able to notice these patterns that we have. And that's literally why these weekly reflections are so valuable, because you're constantly evolving, and sometimes you might be on a great track, but then you might have a very busy season, and that completely changes how you interact with your habits, which just means you need to alter and adjust things and keep moving, and you can do it, right? And so, were there any obstacles this week? Definitely was having a full schedule. And something for my job right now, working as a BCBA in the school board, is I typically go to 2 schools a day across the city. So at lunchtime, I'm usually in my car driving to the next school. So I've really been trying to adapt and figure out, like, what types of meals that I can have on the go that I can have accessible, because if I don't have them with me and the school visits go longer, or there's more traffic, like, there's so many things that I cannot control in the middle of my day. So that has been something that I've been navigating, is those obstacles of understanding, okay, feeding myself. And so those obstacles really show me, another question added to that is, how would future me handle this situation? And it would be preparing, planning ahead and setting myself up for success, which I also feel like ties so much into my struggle of a lot of the times when I'm like, ugh, in the moment me doesn't want to prepare. And I've been so capable of handling a chaotic schedule that I tell myself in those like current moment of, oh, I can figure it out in the moment, or, oh, I have time, or, oh, I'll just order food, or I'll just do this or that. And I tell myself in the moment, which then derails me from that preparing, that setting myself up. And then that screws over future me. And I'm realizing, like, I don't want to do that to future me. I don't want to have to put the burden on future me to have to handle something in the moment, which just adds a layer of stress and overwhelm. So what can I do differently next week to support myself? Really thinking about that planning and preparing. So I'm going to set, a little alarm or reminder on my phone to do a check-in and really create my to-do list and schedule for the next day, and planning my meals ahead of time. So that's something I'm going to be working on this coming week. And next week's episode will be a continuation, kind of similar to this. Um, and then I have a few other questions, but that's the main things I wanted to talk about today. Maybe I'll tackle the other questions in the next week's episode. But I wanted to end off here by saying, what is one stretch belief that will help me this coming week move through those challenges? And so, because this week I noticed that me being busy equaled neglecting myself, or like not preparing, the stretch belief that I am leaning into in this moment is, even though I am busy, it is still safe to take care of myself. And that just sits with me, like, really allowing my deeper core, my wounded self, that psychological human need of being loved and connected to myself. That is the deeper area that I wanted to support myself with. So my one stretch belief that, and I say stretch because it's going to take me some time to like lean into that belief. So, Sonia, even though I am busy, I am capable, and it is safe to take care of myself in that process. So I know I ran through all of that. So I'll quickly just go over the questions that I asked so that you can either jot these down or go back into this episode. I should have said this at the beginning, but like pausing and writing these questions down. But the ones I went over this episode were: one, when did I feel most like my future self this week? Two, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much did I adhere to my habits this week? Three, any thoughts, beliefs, or stories play a role in my habit adherence this week, and what were they? Four, what obstacles did I have this week, and how would my future self handle that? And 5, what can I do differently next week to support myself? And then 6, share one stretch belief that will help you this coming week move through those challenges. That is what I have for you this week. Next week's episode will be very similar of diving deeper into this layer of establishing these habits over time. And I hope this episode was helpful. Please connect with me on Instagram, share your story with me. Let me know how things are going, or if you have any questions at all about you tracking your habits. And I will talk to you guys later.